Welcome to the Conscious Conception Show with me, Sue Ritchie. This show will take you from confusion to clarity, confidence and emotional healing to a joyful pregnancy. This is the place where we uncover the real truth about fertility and why preparing for conception, mind, body and soul, is more important than ever. With honest, empowering conversations, we'll explore the hidden factors impacting fertility and how a holistic approach can help you take back control of your journey. Whether you're trying naturally, navigating IVF, or just starting out, know this: you're not alone, you're not broken, and you're already on your way. So let's walk this path together. Welcome to the show. I'm Sue Ritchie, holistic health and fertility specialist. And I'm really excited today because we're going to be talking about something that people don't really talk about very much, and that's the vaginal microbiome. And yet it's one of the most exciting and rapidly emerging areas of reproductive health research today. And scientists are learning more about how the vaginal microbiome may actually influence not only your vaginal health, but also fertility, IVF outcomes, and pregnancy and implantation. And yet, many women have never even heard of it, let alone had a sort of conversation with a healthcare professional around this topic. And I'm delighted to say today that I'm joined by Dr Josiane Chuissseu. She's the founder of Avline Health. And, she's doing really incredible pioneering work in helping women gain a deeper understanding of the vaginal microbiome through a lot of innovative testing and research. So Dr. Josiane, thank you so much for joining me today. And
good afternoon, everyone.
It's going to be really wonderful, to have you here. And I wonder perhaps you could sort of start by perhaps just sharing briefly sort of how you got into sort of having an interest into the vaginal microbiome and getting into the science of it and everything.
Thank you. And thank you again for having me on your show. So my interest is both personal and professional. So personal because, I have friends and family members who struggle with fertility. Professional because I bring around 20 years of industry expertise in the life science and biotech sector, where I've seen what science can actually do to improve outcomes when it comes to health in general, and more specifically women's health. And my curiosity or my dedication to vaginal microbiome health is everything you've said in your introduction. It's such an important part of women's health, especially for those going through fertility, and yet so very little is known about it, and so very little is talked about. So my passion, my drive, from a scientific but also from a human and a female point of view, woman's point of view, is to make this a mainstream conversation, a mainstream solution.
I think that's wonderful. I think it's really important. I love what you're doing. So what exactly is the vaginal microbiome? I think a lot of people probably don't really understand what it is, but
Yes.
also why should women, trying to conceive really care about that?
Well, most people would have heard about the gut microbiome. I mean, it's now more or less a staple conversation that people have. Have your fermented products, it as diverse food as possible, etc., etc. So in the gut microbiome, diversity is key. That's not the case for the vaginal microbiome. For the vaginal microbiome, less is very much more. And when it comes to the vaginal microbiome, ideally, we're looking at a population of lactobacillus. Ideally, within that population, there are 3 dominant strains, the most important one being Lactobacillus crisparis. And why is it important if you are undergoing a fertility journey or about to embark on a fertility journey? Your lactobacillus, your vaginal microbiome, will play a crucial role in your pH level. So pH level ideally should be between 3.8 and 4.5. And that pH level ensures the motility of the sperms, the survival of the sperms, the ability of the embryo to implant, it lowers down the risk of inflammation and infection, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's it's very important, isn't it? I think, and I think a lot of us don't really understand about the pH of the whole vaginal area as well is so critical in that process of the whole fertilization and the sperm being able to survive in that environment. So I guess many couples are in that situation, where they're told that test results look normal, yet they're still not conceiving. Is there growing evidence that the vaginal microbiome could be, an overlooked factor in, cases of unexplained infertility?
Most definitely, and the evidence is coming hard and fast. I think in the last 18 months or so, there's been dozens of very high-profile scientific papers coming out and asking for that particular area of women's health to be looked at a little bit more than perhaps is done. I think also one of the reasons why this has not been such an important area are the very limiting testing methodologies that are available at the moment. So you've stated again at the start of this show that not many people would have heard about it. And that's also because the testing methodologies are very much basic, I guess is the best way of describing that. They don't provide that layer of detail that is going to be needed to address some of the challenges facing a couple that is undergoing a fertility journey or fertility challenges. And that's where knowing a little bit more about the vaginal microbiome is so important.
So can you help us understand a bit about the science? How might an imbalance in, the vaginal microbiome affect fertilization, implantation, and even sort of, the risk of having miscarriages, but also sort of IVF outcomes, and really, I suppose, also having an impact on being able to maintain a healthy pregnancy?
Yes, so let's start with you've touched very briefly on the pH earlier. So I did mention that, your lactobacillus, especially the important one, will help maintain that pH between 3.8 and 4.5, which is the ideal pH level. 3.8 to 4.5 is an acidic pH. So, and the acidity is as a result of lactic acid, D-lactic acid. And that acidity means that your conventional pathogens cannot grow. That's the very bottom line of it. An acidic media is counterproductive to the growth of pathogens, which basically means the risk of inflammation is maintained to very minimum. The risk of infection is maintained to a very minimum. This means, therefore, that your embryo has a better chance to attach to the endometrium, because when there's an infection or an inflammation, the response of the endometrium becomes thinner. And we all know, your endometrium should have a certain thickness for implantation, etc., etc. So that is a direct consequence of having the right pH. Beyond that, for those perhaps who are actively trying to get pregnant naturally, there is an exchange of microbiome between partners.
Mm.
Your partner has microbiome in their seminal fluid. So you want to make sure that if there's an undiagnosed or a dormant infection in your partner's seminal fluid, that infection does not jeopardizes your own hosting environment. So having that pH at an acid range keeps also the transfer of infection between partners. And then beyond that, the female body is such that there is constant cross-pollination, and I use the word cross-pollination very loosely here, between your vagina and your anus. So there is naturally an opportunity for infection because of our anatomy. We actively communicate that way. So making sure your vaginal microbiome is optimal makes sure also that opportunistic bacteria do not stand a chance to infect and therefore jeopardize implantation. And I'm talking natural as well as IVF or otherwise assisted implantation. That's the very briefly. And the next thing that I want to also bring people's attention to is the miscarriage post-implantation and the preterm birth. That again have been demonstrated as a result of opportunistic bacteria finding an opportunity to grow and overwhelming, perhaps there's a better word, but overwhelming the embryo, thus either resulting in a miscarriage or indeed in a preterm birth if you're further along with your pregnancy.
All very fascinating stuff, and it just shows how important actually understanding all of this and being able to, access and understand what's actually happening in your vaginal microbiome. Really, really fascinating. So something that surprised me when we had sort of previous conversations was this whole role, that the male partner can play in this scenario. And, I think you sort of mentioned that, men can carry bacteria and pathogens that then can, affect the, impact and affect the vaginal microbiome. And obviously, have an impact on actually people being able to conceive.
Right.
So I just wondered if you can explain a little bit more what this sort of means for, for couples who are trying to have a baby.
Making a baby doesn't happen in isolation, doesn't it?
It takes two to tango, as I
exactly.
say.
Literally. So it's not just the female, the host, the host partner, as it were, that needs to look after their vaginal microbiome. It is also the male partner. And this is also why Avline is pushing for the seminal fluid to also be considered when fertility journeys are embarked upon. So it is important that males, whether it is natural pregnancy or not, because even if it's assisted, it has to be extracted from somewhere. It is important that males also are confident about the health of their seminal fluid. And there's a lot of work that's been done at the moment, but there is emerging data, again, scientific data, that is saying that some of those motility issues that you hear sometimes when they do to the conventional seminal analysis, or poor semen spermatozoid distribution, could actually be underlying symptoms of a latent infection. So, as I said, more to come. They're looking at it. There's a lot of research being done, but it does make sense a little bit if you look at the biology of sperm, and you look at the motility, and you look at the density of seminal fluid, that looking at the microbiome of the man or the producer will also play a key role in the successful outcome of a fertility journey.
So do you think some testing of the microbiome of the men will be coming in the near future?
We are going to bring something very soon.
It sounds really good. I mean, I think we know that the gut microbiome not only affects women's ability to conceive, but it also affects men as well in terms of the sperm quality and everything. So it's really interesting to hear how important the man's microbiome with regard to all the seminal fluid and everything like that is key in this whole situation.
Absolutely. I mean, again, if you go back to the gut microbiome, we know there's a host of evidence now connecting the gut microbiome to estrogen levels in women. And estrogen is key in the digestion of glucogen, which is the food that your lactobacillus eats. And I'm mentioning this to highlight again how nothing works in isolation, right? So take that and look at the men and the way their gut microbiome is going to influence testosterone and various other factors, which are going to influence the way in which the sperms is going to be produced, the quality of the sperm, and the quality and the density of the seminal fluid. So we really got to have this holistic approach to this journey, and scientific as well.
Absolutely. It is. I think the whole thing about the whole conception thing is that, when the reproductive system doesn't sit in isolation, everything in our bodies is all connected. So your company, Avline Health, has developed a vaginal microbiome test. What information can that type of test provide? Who might benefit from it? And, how could the results that they get from it actually help women make more informed decisions about their reproductive health?
So I want to take a step back and look at what we have at the moment. What is considered the conventional testing methodology. So by and large, most women will recognize this. If you have a bit of an infection or an itch or whatever, you go to your GPs in the UK, your obstetrician or obgyn in the US and everywhere else, and you do a pee stick test, and that's where they'll determine whether the pH, whether the pH is acidic or is more basic, which is an indication of pathogens actually being quite active. Then possibly you might be offered a culture test, which basically means that someone will take a swab and then attempt to cultivate to determine what sort of bacteria, pathogens, and what have you are growing there. They have their place, but they are very limited in the type of information they're going to provide. So an elevated pH does not tell you what specific pathogen has created that increase in pH. Is it a virus? Is it a bacteria? Is it a candida? Is it a yeast? You're not going to know that from the pH test, which is a problem in itself already. Moving to the next stage, where you have your swab, the culture. Again, you are assuming that there's going to be enough population to grow so that you can determine what actually might be the pathogen. In most cases, it might not actually be enough of a particular population to create the situation that is dysbiosis. It could be that you have both a yeast and bacterial infection, or just an increase of one and the other, but it is not going to be able to tell you with precision what level of infection you're facing, assuming something has grown on the petri dish. And then you have the other vaginal microbiome tests, which rely on various DNA-based technologies such as polymerase chain reaction, or indeed 16S next generation sequencing. They do provide another layer of information, but what our test does, the pelvic biome test from Avline Health, is detail. We are very much as a company about precision and data, and precision and data comes with granularity of detail. We are going to be able to identify 50 plus type of pathogens.
Wow.
Bacteria, viruses, yeast, candida. But more importantly, perhaps for your listeners who are on their fertility journey, we are able to tell you the concentration of each of the bacteria we've identified, which is key because that will tell you where you sit in terms of what is going to be your next step in addressing whatever the issue might be. A woman with, say, and I'm making up a profile here, a woman with, say, 60% lactobacillus crispators will probably, and this is not a diagnostic, but will probably benefit from some form of nutritional adjustment and probiotic, and could find herself in the 95% that is the optimum level that a woman can be. A woman with lactobacillus inus, which is the one that unfortunately does not produce any D-lactase, may want to find other ways to maintain the pH level and to maintain a healthy vaginal microbiome. But you cannot go to that level of response if you don't know what you're actually responding to in the first place.
Yeah, that makes very good sense. Definitely. So what practical steps can women and couples take to support a healthy vaginal microbiome, especially when they're on that journey of, fertility, but preparing for conception?
Mm. I would always argue for nutrition, healthy living. It's the basis of everything. So what is good for your gut is probably going to be good for your vagina. Fresh probiotics, vitamins, etc., etc. I want to draw your listeners' attention to the hygiene practices. Douching is a flat out no. There's really no other way to put it. It's a no. You are draining your most precious resources by douching. You're not giving your vagina a chance to actually do what it's supposed to do, which is to protect your possible embryo. Your menstrual hygiene or products of choice will also play a role. For those of your listeners who perhaps be using cups, menstrual cups. Now, the idea here is not to tell women what they should do. The idea is to support you with information that will hopefully lead you to make an informed choice.
Mm.
If you are using menstrual cups, washing them is not going to be good enough for the vaginal microbiome. Boil those cups at least once a day and allow for free flow. So that means protection with our cups at least once a day. That basically reduces the instances of pathogen finding a perfect medium to grow, right? And then there is your partner. Again, doesn't happen in isolation. Do get checked. If there's anything that is untoward, I know, and again, it sounds a bit of a cliche here, men don't like to talk about health, but you're making a baby together. Your help is going to be needed. So being proactive in actually ensuring that you are as healthy as you possibly can be around that area is equally important.
Unfortunately, we're now getting close to the end of the show, but I just wondered whether there's how, sort of looking ahead, how important do you think that the vaginal microbiome is going to become in terms of the future of fertility care?
Very, 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 very. And I say that for two reasons. One is the data is just emerging, but the amount of data is almost on a weekly basis. It's quite impressive. The regulators are catching up. So there was a quote by one of the senior executives at the MHRA. So this is the Medical Health and Research Regulator in the UK, who said that the role of the vaginal microbiome is just emerging, and it might be one of the most important frontiers in women's health. So these are regulators actually throwing their hats in the ring and saying how important this is. But also, in general, no parts of the human body work in isolation. I think we are just scratching the surface of how important this is overall for women's health. And I mentioned in passing very quickly earlier, estrogen. You talk about perimenopause. You talk about mental health. You talk about, the way in which you're going to experience the chances of it's vast, and we are barely starting. So I'm extremely excited.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining for today. And it's been, really wonderful to actually get all your shares on, your knowledge on the vaginal microbiome, because, I can see how it's just going to be so important, not only just to women's health in general, but obviously very specifically to fertility. And I think it's been hugely eye-opening. And I'm, really, it's so good to know that there is a vaginal microbiome test that can actually help couples to really assess what's actually happening and to help them on their fertility journey.
Absolutely. And if I may mention, one of the missions of Avline Health is education. We don't know what we don't know. So I want to invite your listeners to obviously go on your website, our website, to educate themselves, but also we do offer educative opportunities, education opportunities, and one of them is coming in September. It is paramount that every woman, every couple, anyone that is embarking on fertility journey has all the facts, or as much facts as possible in hand, and that's what we're here for.
Oh, that's great. And I think that this is going to be one of the really key things. So for any couples that are listening, that they're feeling frustrated, confused, or wondering why conception isn't happening, despite sort of doing everything you can, you can know that there may be more answers available more than you actually perhaps realize currently. And I'm excited because I'm going to be actually offering your vaginal microbiome test as part of my holistic fertility support. And if you'd like to learn more, I'd love to invite you to book a fertility focus call with me, and we can explore your individual situation and discuss what might be the appropriate next steps, if you like, just for you. And you can do that obviously via my website. So really, until sort of the next time on the show, I want you to know that every positive step you take to support your health is also an investment in your future child and your future family. And for me, everything is all about, creating healthy couples who make healthy babies. Thank you for listening to the Conscious Conception Show with me, Sue Ritchie. To stay informed and inspired, be sure to tune in every third Tuesday of the month at 7:30 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and sign up for my newsletter for helpful tips on boosting fertility and preparing for positive, empowered parenthood. If you're ready for more support, connect with me on social media on Instagram and LinkedIn and at Optimum Fertility, or visit my website at sue-ritchie.com.